This is the Mountainside Podcast, and joining us in studio once again is my good friend Donny Dust. This is a follow-up episode to our On the Mountainside series, exclusively airing on YouTube. You must go check it out. Donny helped me craft a knife using stone. It was highly educational, and I thoroughly enjoy his company. It's great to have him back in studio, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation. We've done this so many times.
I know.
Matt, we did one time where we got like 2 hours in and we had like a power surge.
Yeah.
And I guess my battery backup wasn't good, so I lost like the entire audio. And Donny was so cool about it. I was like, fuck, there goes mine and Donny's relationship.
No, you're golden, man. It happens. Technology, you know, high tech world, you got to go low tech.
Hell yeah. Brother, I got to get a bigger studio, man. Like every time I hang out with you, it's like I'm bringing home 300 pounds of bison meat, more stone tools. You brought me some amazing gifts.
Right on.
This is twice in 1 week that we've hung out, which is freaking amazing.
Yeah, man. You came to the place and we broke some stone, did some tools, made a dope-ass blade.
Yeah, look at this thing.
Yeah.
I got to show this to Maddie, too. Maddie, you haven't seen this yet. No. So Donny and I, this is what we made the other day. He really made it. I just kind of
This was you. This was you.
So, if you haven't watched On the Mountainside with Donny, the Stone Knife episode, go and check that out before you listen to this podcast. It's not very long. It's something new that we're doing here. It's always been kind of like the vision.
Sure.
For the podcast was always to be a bit more immersive.
Yeah.
And now we're finally putting it together. So it's like,
I'm pumped. I'm excited for you. I mean, I enjoy it. I watch all your episodes. I think it's just one of those other evolutions of a podcast to like start to do the things that you discuss. You know, conversation's good, but action's even better.
Yeah, you can talk shit all day long, but actions, right? And I've been saying, I mean, we've known each other for at least 3 to 4 years now, right?
Quite a while, yeah.
Forged our friendship in here.
Pretty much.
Which is super cool.
Yeah.
And then we've done some really cool stuff together that was not on camera, really. I mean, we had like some cameras set up, but it was more for science, I guess, right? Yeah. So we've gotten to do some really cool things. And but to bring a film crew along so other people can experience it. And just your knowledge, man, is so badass. If you're not following Donny on YouTube, you absolutely should be. That's like, that's where you put some long form content, like super useful stuff that could save your life.
Yeah. I like to hit all kind of like, you know, avenues, if you will, some of the archaeological redoing and remaking like ancient tools and using them, that experimental archaeology, and then a lot of survival videos and just primitive living videos. So there's a shotgun blast.
Foraging. Yeah, man.
Just tons of stuff out there.
Yeah. And then, so anyways, went up and got to go in your cave / garage, which is so cool. It's the coolest garage I've ever been in, man. Like just everything that you have in there, all the tools. Nobody else has a garage like Donny Dust, man.
It's my workshop. You know? It's where, you know, someone puts it in an order for something. I sit there for hours and make the blades and build bows and do it all.
The Dust Depot.
Yeah. Dust Depot. Exactly.
I like it. Yeah. So to get into this, we started with a rock that was probably, I don't know, the size of like a dinner plate, right? Like a good paper plate. And you had me quickly break it into something that was we got close to this.
Yeah.
Within like an hour, which I was shocked at. And it was totally, I had tried to do this on my own, but failed miserably. I bought you a cute little piece that I worked a serrated edge onto, and it was still,
it works. I mean, it's a tool.
But, you know, just you pointing out where to strike, how to strike, what different tools, and then even some kind of reverse processes that I never really thought of, like dulling something to make something sharp. So you can break it into sharper pieces was kind of, that was fascinating to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole science behind, you know, flint knapping and how you take, you know, a chunk of stone like this and turn it into, you know, a projectile point. And it's one of those things. Takes a lot of time, takes a lot of, you know, kind of your own experimentation into things that you're doing wrong. Because I never had, you know, a teacher. I never had YouTube to kind of fall back on when I was going down that kind of flint knapping process. So a lot of it was me picking up rock and experimenting. And then over time, you kind of, hear from different people, or you pick up a book and you start to pinpoint all the little nuances and things that you've done, and then kind of the reasons behind those things. So like when you're abrading an edge of a razor sharp flake, you have to do that because if you hit it, it's just going to crush under the impact, compared to if you abrade it, your billet, like a soft billet like this will actually grip the edge and then rip a flake off, and then you get that nice tapered out piece, and it's a tool.
Yeah, it's so fascinating to me, hunting these things as a kid.
Yeah.
Which you're not really supposed to do, I guess. I don't know. But, I have a small collection. It was more like kind of the time I got to spend with family members doing it. It was super cool. Like, if you go out like hunting, you're trying to be quiet. There's not a whole lot of talking. A lot of times you're split up, and trying to attack stuff. But like rock hunting or arrowhead hunting is so different because you can stand 10 feet apart and probably walk right by an arrowhead that you might not see, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But it just gives you a lot of time if you're out there for 8-10 hours a day just to kind of really like hang out, shoot the breeze beyond just normal conversation like, oh, hey, how's it going? I think that's what I kind of enjoy about podcasts too.
For sure.
To come around full circle is like spending genuine time with somebody is
it's fun.
Yeah.
You get to know somebody, you enjoy the conversation. I mean, it's kind of funny. Maybe two and a half weeks ago, I had a buddy come out who lived in Ohio. His name's Evan. He's on social media. He's another flint napper. So him and I were out in the bush for a couple of days, and then Marissa met us out there. We kind of found this little camp spot next to this stream. And, as we're kind of like hanging out, Marissa kind of walks to the top of this ridge, and she's like, screams at, Evan and I, like, hey, were you guys napping up here? And we're like, no. She goes, there's nothing but flakes and debutage all on the ground. So we make our way up there and we start finding remember on the bottom of my floor, all those little pieces, we start finding that everywhere. And I'm like, I guarantee you this was a campsite, because just where we were located it was up on this small little ridge. There was water close by, not sitting on the water. There's plenty of like cover. And, you could say obviously the flora has changed over the years, but things repeat themselves in a natural, dying process. A tree falls, another one grows. And as we're looking, we're finding this debutage of jasper and chalcedony. We find this broken base of a point. So if we took this guy right here and we broke this chunk off, this is what we found, like a completely worked piece that somebody 1,000, 2,000 years ago, maybe even longer, was sitting there, working a piece of stone. It broke. They left it there and went on with their life. And we found that chunk. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. And you never know the history behind it. I think that's one of the coolest things too.
Yeah.
Is like, who's the last person that touched this and how long ago, I think that's kind of the fascination behind it.
We hunt for them. Like anywhere we go, anywhere we stop, if we're driving around the States and we're stopping at Airbnb, we always try to find a place where it's like, can we walk the grounds and find stuff? And I can tell you, we have been like 100% successful. All people have to do is just look down on the ground in some of these kind of, remote, maybe there's a cabin with 100 acres. I can guarantee you can find stuff very, very easily. We've found stuff.
I found stuff on the golf course right here.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as the kind of like eastern farmlands in Missouri and Kansas, all that farmland gets turned up. And when it rains, the mud and kind of dirt settles, and those stone points and debutage just kind of float to the top, and people can just surface collect. You can dig, which is totally, you can take, a giant backhoe and scoop up dirt and put it on a shaker table and get all sorts of points. But some of the best points are in fields and then in creeks, because as rain and erosion, a lot of those projectile points wind up in creeks. They just kind of get eroded down, they tumble, and then you're in a creek. So you could creek walk for an entire creek with big banks and little cobbles along the edge and find all manner of projectile points, broken points, debutage. It's everywhere.
It's so badass. And just that part of history, you're picking up a part of history, like it's so fascinating. And then that connection, like thinking about, God, what did this thing do? I remember specifically going to, there's a little museum outside of Kalispell, and I got to ask, my uncle still is kind of up in that area. and I wonder if this is still on display. There was a human rib cage with an arrowhead stuck in it, like from the bison experiment.
Cool.
Maddie, maybe look this up and see if we can pinpoint where this at. But I thought that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, man.
So as a kid, I saw this. And then every time I picked one up, that's kind of what ran through my mind. I was like, I wonder if this killed a cowboy or, you know, or a cavalry member or something like that. Yeah. It's pretty impressive. And I think one of the biggest takeaways that to kind of come full circle with it and how I treat modern day hunting with archery, that taught me a lot of like hunting setups and hunting positions and high ground and where you would find cover, because my grandfather being a bow hunter, he was like, you don't want to know how I find so many arrowheads? I think like a hunter.
That's it.
Right? And they probably took a shot from here. There was good cover. Yeah. Maybe they were shooting down into a creek or, you know, it kind of makes sense. Yeah,
there was a culture that existed known as the Mount Albion culture, which was right along the Front Range. And what they would do is they used quartz, which isn't the most ideal. You can produce some points, but their points were relatively rudimentary. They never crossed over the mountains. They never really went into the eastern side. They just kind of hung along that Front Range. And you can go up there today and still see the horseshoe hunting blinds and these rock structures that are placed at these different intervals where they would hunt from with an atlatl, you know, and you can go there, you can see it, and you can just see like, oh man, this totally makes sense. If the wind's blowing this way, I'm in this horseshoe, it's gonna, you know, prevent some sort of observation by, you know, a game animal. But you can kind of just put yourself in their kind of their landscape, if you were, that mindset, and see exactly where they would sit, why they would be sitting there. Intervisibility lines, like in hunting. You know, you have a bend around the base of a mountain. You can't see what's around there. Something else might be able to sense you, and as it, you know, approaches, it might be able to see you. But like just using intervisibility lines and the masking of the terrain and the things that they built up in these little horseshoes they're still there, and it makes total sense why they are there and the purposes behind it.
Yeah. There's one specific spot where we hunted out in South Park.
Okay.
I think it's all private property at this point, so you couldn't get back out there. I should have just bought the place, honestly. I think you could buy it for like $500 an acre or something at one point when I was looking at it. But we found probably maybe 20 or 30 points. I don't know how many points. Like my family has been going there for years. Gotcha. I owned part of it at one point, but it was just a saddle. So animals cross. I mean, they're opportunists, right? Yeah. So they're going to take the least path of resistance, as long as there's no predatory stuff in there.
That's it.
But if you're a native with, you know, a longbow and hiding in some brush, it's a great opportunity. A great shot. So we found all kinds of stuff in there, knives and, you know, just all kinds of stuff.
It's not really hard to kind of strategize if you are going out to look for artifacts. And I think, you know, first things first, it's not 100% illegal to take artifacts off of private land. If somebody owns it, you can. If it's like a national park or BLM, it's really best to just, you know, take a photo, notify the appropriate people, whether it's, you know, some sort of archaeology department or a department within there saying, all right, we found some artifacts, you know, we left it in place, here's a grid coordinate, that sort of thing. But there are plenty of places where you can go and collect, you know, artifacts on private land. And I think when people are out hunting these things with intent, with purpose, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it's going to sit there. I think where you just kind of need to strategize is saying, is this a significant sort of location, a significant find? Am I finding an ancient campsite that could be revealing of, you know, cultural practices or, you know, flint napping sort of purposes like source stones and am I finding like more geo artifacts like, you know, cooked bones? If, you know, there's different aspects of artifacts that can be found on a site. So if you come across something before you start disturbing it, and you are on, you know, public land, it's good to be like, all right, this could be something. Let's leave it. I wouldn't start posting it on social media because people will go out and, you know, pilfer through it, but just notify the authorities, and you never know. That could be maybe not necessarily missing link, but it could be something that proves that a culture or a people moved farther into a location, east, northeast, southwest, or that culture did something that maybe that connects them to another culture. I mean, there's so many different ways to connect those pieces, so it's best to kind of leave the stuff. But if you're on your land, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, we specifically one time think that we found like a burial ground.
There you go.
And we started finding like some ceremonial pieces, like almost like beads and like little sculptures of animals.
Yeah.
Out of like the same sort of chert and stuff that they made.
That makes sense.
And we totally just left it alone.
Smart.
Like, just like, just to respect. You don't want to be robbing somebody's grave, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't find any human remains or anything, but it was just kind of like, okay, this is sacred ground. And you could almost feel it. Like, and it was crazy where it was at. There's like a 360-degree view. Like, it kind of made sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you start putting it all together, it's like.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, that's kind of the fun. Like, for me, I was never the biggest, arrowhead artifact hunter. I mean, once you make them, you're kind of going through that process. But I think the enjoyment is like when you do find something like that, or even when I find debutage, little flakes and pieces, it's just exciting because it's like I do the exact same thing. They did that thing possibly here or 10 yards away, and it's just kind of eroded down. So it's like, man, that's badass in my opinion. I enjoy that. And
I have a new love for it now after spending the day with you, this week. I think it's so cool because I'm so fascinated with it, but now I can actually, like, I've always admired the art form, I guess, because it truly is an art form, man. You are sculpting something, and I mean, like, these are amazing.
Yeah, they're hunting points.
And you just whip these up out of, like,
the flakes.
What was that, 2 days ago? We were recording, and then these are some of the flakes that I broke off the rock, and you turned it into, look at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's got good symmetry. It's got, the vex side that gives you a little bit of a, if you look straight down the pipe, I mean, that's a cutter through and through. You could throw it on an atlatl. I'd probably put that one on an atlatl and that one on some sort of arrow, just a big old bow.
Yeah. And it's so cool diving into that. It really made me even appreciate more the engineering, because when you look at this, we're so used to looking at polished things with straight lines, like these microphone stands and like everything's prefabbed in plastic or metal nowadays, even broadheads, right?
Yeah.
Like they're razor sharp. But you just explaining like the aerodynamics behind it, your cut edge, how straight you want to try to keep your cut edge, like that all started to click with me a little bit. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. You wouldn't want a wavy edge trying to penetrate something because it's just going to slow it down. You're going to create drag.
I mean, even when we did that experiment, some of the projectile points had little teeth. They were trying to over lacerate something. Problem with something like that is if you're throwing into an animal, like if you think of most, Holocene sort of like megafauna, mammoths, things like that were relatively hairy, that just catches on that hair and just slows the actual penetration in the animal. So if you kind of have a smoother edge or something with a smaller laceration sort of edge to it, it will make entry far easier than something that's wavy and toothed. I mean, a lot of that's just kind of like modern nappers, kind of showing their art form and their capabilities. So there's nothing wrong with that. I stick to the 100% traditional with, using antlers, stone and bone to create those pieces. I think that's the full circle when it comes to napping, is like,
it's kind of a respect for the art, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
without
you could paint a Van Gogh by tracing lines and paint by number, right? Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like, there are guys that are out there making amazing stuff and beautiful pieces, but it might be on a bench grinder and a drill press and a whatever else that they might use to shape stone.
A lot of guys, they'll take a piece of stone like this and they'll run it through a saw, like a stone cutting saw, like a tile saw, and they'll actually cut the profile out that they want. So they'll actually cut it out into an arrow point, and then all they have to do is just pressure flake that fresh cut and just put the flake scars on there, put a couple notches, and then they turn around and sell it someplace or say,
wow.
So I don't, it's only raw stone.
Yeah.
It's only, antler billets and antler tines for pressure flaking and hard hammer percussion when it comes to the actual flint napping. I mean, I think it's a way, deeper story when you source your stone. You know, Merce and I will travel to Texas and we'll collect tons of stone. And you come back, you make your hunting projectiles, and you go out and you like hunt something with that, you know, whether it's, and with the bow and the arrow, the whole 9 yards, it's like whoosh, all from the land. And now you're engineering all these things together to produce a food source. Like last time I was hog hunting, shot a couple hogs with a bow, one took off, you know, these are all invasive. So put one into it and it took off. And then this was on like a 70,000 acre ranch, and we were kind of joking, like some cowboy is going to find that arrow sticking out of that hog and be like, "Oh shit, you know,
they're still alive.
Yeah, it's happening again." You know,
yeah, right.
So, you know, it's one of those practices that I enjoy, and I think with the stone tools and flint knapping, the whole lithic arts, if you will, it's I mean, we've really been doing it since 3.3 million years ago. We've used stone, when you really think about it, longer than anything else.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Easily. And, and if you go back
or just the history of like archery, like look at how long archery and atlatls were around long before some Chinese dude made gunpowder over a campfire, right?
Exactly.
Like for thousands of years, it was such an effective weapon. And man, it's just the evolution of it is crazy.
And when you think about like so there's a period of time called the Chalcolithic or the Chalcolithic, you can say either version, which is the transition from the Neolithic into the Bronze Age. That's kind of like a Greek word for like bronze and, stone, lithic, chalco. And when you find different stuff, like I have a video coming out called, it's called the slug knife. And the slug knife is essentially a very easy representation of the losing of the flint knapping sort of technology, because copper was becoming a thing, and then bronze, and then we kind of moved in the Iron Age. So when you look at that slug knife, it does not
that it almost looks like a tomahawk, but it was the piece of copper sticking out of it that you showed me the other day?
So that was like a copper axe. That's like an Utsi the Iceman axe. So that's a raw piece of copper that was essentially smelted and then cast inside of a sand cast. So you pour it in there, it takes the shape, and then you can grind off the rough edges. But the slug knife it's just created in a way where it looks very entry level, looks very beginner like, if you will. And it's because as copper was becoming a thing, the technology of flint knapping and the aspects, everything that goes into flint knapping was being lost over generations. And that stone tool is a representation of losing a technology and slowly developing a new one. And it's kind of interesting because you can see our first rudimentary tools 3.3 million years ago in the Olduvai Gorge, choppers and scrapers, and you see this evolution that eventually leads to, Folsom points and Salutrian style. Like this is a Salutrian style point 20, 30,000 years ago. Those hunter-gatherers from, France, and this is a small one. Usually they're like that long.
Because what they were hunting or their prey was much larger.
Yeah, it was larger. A lot of megafauna.
Yeah.
During this time, you're battling elements. The actual geography and the wind and the storms. The climate was changing, and the animals you were hunting were well prepared. Whether it was through thick hides, thick fur, huge dense bone, and layers of fat, you had to punch through. And as you see that kind of evolution of the beauty into stone, eventually it declines. And that slug knife is a good representation of the decline of flint knapping as copper and then into bronze slowly started to take hold in those tools.
Do you think there's any photos of it online?
Slug knife?
Slug knife?
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see what it looks like.
I can just make that video go live right now. That right there. That's a slug knife.
Okay.
There might be a couple more if you scroll down. Yeah, it's called a plano convex knife.
So that's copper then? Or is that stone?
So that's stone.
Yeah.
But if you look at this one in the upper right-hand corner, so when we were doing our knapping, we were discussing, the flake dynamics. So usually on a flake, you have the dorsal side, which is the top side. And that sometimes has cortex, old flake scars on it. It's just been worked. And then on the ventral side, that's the actual portion of stone that was connected to that spall. And when you rip that flake off, it's super smooth. And to be able to take a flake and turn it on both sides pressure flake and give it shape, give it symmetry, give it aerodynamic flight takes time and it takes practice. But on these slug knives, you find that they are essentially worked on one side. And how you have to kind of think about this is, as a napper, we were talking about our edges, raising our edges and our center lines. You have to raise that edge 2 or 3 centimeters up to start removing the stone off the top, and then balance it by taking stone off the bottom. Well, they didn't know how to do this. They were losing that ability to nap. It was
just kind of like we are losing the ability to write now,
exactly.
right? Because everybody types.
Talk to text, they type, they do all these different things. So that knife, yes, it was a very simple cutting tool, and it's still cut, but it's not a cutting tool that looks like this with symmetry and it's snapped finely. It's just very simple. It's just kind of like your pocket knife that you could cut some fibers with, probably open up an animal with, and that was it. So where they find these is they find them in burial sites. And it's kind of like if you had a loved one pass and they always carried that one buck knife with them.
Yeah.
Like old school buck knife, didn't lock, nothing. They just know how to handle it properly. You'd probably put it in that, that casket of your grandfather, your great grandfather. And the idea is kind of that these slug knives were part of maybe a hand-me-down or like an older generation of nappers and people that used them as kind of like their tool, and they'd put them in burial sites. And then you really don't see them in a lot of like open archaeological finds. You can find them, but they're really condensed in burial sites.
To compare to an analogy, comparing it to like archery, it would be like 90% of guys hunt with compound bows, myself included.
Yeah.
But there's still guys out that are doing it traditionally. And then there's guys that are even doing it like more on a paleo side where you're building your own bows and from start to stop, from ground to
it's a technology, if you will. So from a stick bow, which is resource from the land, everything, including your fletching, sinew, so on, to a compound bow, there's an advancement of technology, but with that advancement, we lose something from the past, and that slug knife is the representation.
So exactly what we just did on the mountainside episode.
Literally. Literally. So
that's pretty badass, man.
So is that one closer to a slug knife, the one that Bobby has in his hand?
No. A slug knife.
The one I had before.
That right there is a good representation. The one on the left-hand corner. Right there. So if you click on that, it's essentially just a flake, smooth on that ventral side.
Yeah, so
and then worked on the dorsal side.
So it's not really, it's concave, not convex.
Yeah,
right?
Well, it's a plano convex. So a lot of them, most flakes have a bend to them. So in a lot of those bends, they were just working the top side of that bend where that, kind of represents.
Yeah,
see it right there. Real simple. Nothing too elaborate.
That's crazy.
So that's because as a napper, you should be able to turn that edge, raise it and lower it to create symmetry.
They needed Donny Dust teaching them.
It's just funny because when you look at it, I think of it, maybe that was 4 or 5 generations. So, let's say people are living to 50 and 60, civilization's in place, trade is in place. We're starting to grow foods. Animals are obviously domesticated. People are settling down more, and with the advent of copper and then into bronze and into iron, this wasn't needed. So you think, well, when was that time? When was that period? It was really that, the Chalcolithic period when napping was slowly, fading away and copper was taking hold.
It's so fascinating to me because whether you hunt or not, at the end of the day, we had Dan Gates in here the other day. I don't know if you're familiar with Dan. He's doing some amazing stuff to save hunting in the state of Colorado and around the U.S., right? And kind of that connection. He was like, whether you like it or not, everybody came from hunter-gatherers, right? Which we've brought up and talked about ad nauseum. But he's like, they're still doing it today.
Yeah.
When you go into the grocery store, do you pick through the fruit? You're hunter-gatherer, right?
Like this one looks,
so it's like, it's really the same thing. It's ingrained in us, even though that we don't realize we're doing it. When you're picking out your Tesla and the interior and the exterior,
very true.
And what kind of battery you want in it, and how fast you want it to go, and the different features. It's a hunter-gatherer mentality. That's why we like stuff. That's why we collect shit. Like,
It's an artificial selection.
And I've never really thought about it that way. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Total sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I can get behind that very, very easily. Yeah. People do that. I mean, you do it anytime you go to a buffet. You pick the things that you want, throw it on your plate, and come back for 12 more servings.
Just people do it different ways, right? Yeah. You and I are out doing it on 1,600-pound bison.
I know, man.
You have a bison not experiment coming up, but experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is just a straight butchering class.
And anybody's invited if you have strong back muscles and can hang, right? Like there's a lot of like, it is a daunting task, right? Like you're going to realize what you're capable of by spending 8 hours bent over. Yeah.
Well, after we did our butchering and experiment, I decided just to offer the opportunity to pretty much butcher out a bison with, any of the number of the stone tools here. Teach folks how to properly pop some flakes and make a couple easy hand blades and some hafted blades, and then butcher a bison. So
there's some like stones working in there too. Yeah, as well, like making your own tools.
Yeah, there'll be a couple hours of baseline napping. We're not really creating a lot of large blades, but discoidal flakes. We do some pitch knives. So you take a raw flake, put it in some pitch. That's your handle. And then I supply 20 or 30 different cutting options for people to, ultimately experiment with. And we, as a small tribe, we take apart a bison from, nose to tail. We pull the hide. We smash bones for the marrow. We're pulling out the insides, talking about the intestines, what can be eaten, what can't be eaten. And we fully butcher out a full bison with Stone Age tools. And the last one we did was 1,100 pounds, and then the one I'm going to be doing in October is 2,400 pounds. So it's
holy shit.
Just it's going to be a beast. It's a lot, but as you know, it's work. It's work.
Oh, it is work. Yeah, you're going to feel it. I mean, that was one of the most gratifying things I've ever done in my life, though.
Awesome.
I mean, I think maybe because of the connection and the fascination that I have with it, but just getting to spend time with you and Dr. Devin Pettigrew, like the knowledge that man has is unparalleled, man. Like it's unbelievable. I learned so much on that end of it to even make my fascination greater, right? Like I never got bored with it. Oh, no. And just the substance I got to put down on my family's dinner table so many times.
That's the way to do it.
So many times, man. Like most of it's gone. I have a few packages that are like, we're going to bust this out. It's like that bottle of champagne or that lucky cigar or whatever, right? Like it's so cool because that connection is just unbelievable. And I really encourage, I hope a lot of the people that show up to this have never really kind of experienced like hunting or anything before because, man, it's eye-opening, right? There's an emotional aspect to it. There's the ranch that you're in, this beautiful setting. Yeah. Is it at the same ranch?
Yeah, same Eagle Wings Ranch. I mean,
shout out.
That's the actual bison we're doing. That's a 7-year-old bull. That's a breeder,
and it's only $850.
Yeah. Yeah, so I try to make it.
Are they going home with meat, right?
Yeah, they'll probably go home with well over 100+ pounds of meat, if not more. I have 6 people signed up now. I like to keep it at 8, so it's kind of
okay. Matt, edit this out. We're gonna take the last whatever spots are left, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really you can't get a better price for that at a store. You
can't go and buy ground.
No, man.
New Zealand. Shipped in a sea container bison for that price at the market.
Yeah. It will be dispatched. We start cutting into it. It starts going into coolers, and probably within a 24 to 36 hour period, I mean, you should have it at your house, vacuum sealed or at a butcher for secondary processing. Like you won't get anything fresher. More importantly, I think
within 36 hours, I was feeding backstrap to my family. Like absolutely, it's amazing.
Absolutely. And then that night, once the bison is completely butchered out, I mean, we start cooking it up right there.
Yeah, we had stew that night. Shout out to Marissa and you, and McCormick's.
Yeah, man, it was some good stew. But that's really what it is. That's how people. you really used to live, whether it was a group trying to take down some sort of, when you think about it, it is megafauna. It's something over 1,000 pounds. It's monstrous. It's
It is
huge.
a prehistoric animal. I
really
mean,
is.
really, yeah.
And that tribe, we just take it apart. We share in this, the awesomeness of it. And I mean, it's not so much about hunting the bison. I think there's kind of a misconception when it comes to like hunting bison these days, because there's no real wild bison. A lot of them are mixed between buffalo and cows.
Hunt in a can or caged hunt,
pretty much. So for us with Jim the farmer, it's just like, hey, these animals. He knows all of his animals and how they are, their temperaments. He gets them in, he dispatches them, and then he's really into how we go about taking it apart, and how
he cares a lot. I think
he's a real
that was
farmer.
the most like fascinating thing to me. It was just the level of respect for the animal when we got there. Because when you called me, I was I was in Chicago.
I remember
working a show, a big rock show, and you called me like kind of on a whim. You're like, hey, this is what's going on. It's going on this week. And I think I had like 3 or 4 days to kind of get my shit together to make it. And I was like, all right, well, let me figure out a way I'm not going to miss this. So I quickly figured out how to, get home, get packed, get up there. But when you told me about it, you told me it was like a bison experiment through was it through CU Boulder?
Yeah.
Okay, at the time.
Yeah, Devin was working.
Kind of a reverse engineering thing.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, this is going to get Western as fuck, dude. Because I'm thinking we're throwing atlatls into a bison and all that. And I had no idea until we like pulled up at the gate and I met you. And kind of got the download because I just was scrambling to make it there to begin with. But I was all in, dude. I thought we were going to atlatl a bison, like hunt one is kind of what I envisioned. But it was done so respectfully and so well done. And like, I think the coolest thing is like Jim, shout out to him, just like he was very protective of his ranch and his herd and was like, when you live in that sort of environment, the first thing that you do, you can tell a real man just kind of by like how they kind of size everybody up, that level of respect, the respect that we were showing back by being on his land and then not only that, the respect for the animal, it was almost like a moment of silence where nothing was really going on. The bison was dispatched, and we were all just kind of hanging out. And Jim went over to it and was like, "Thanks, buddy, man. You've been a good, you've been a good herd bull." And like, just that level of connection was like so gratifying to me because that's how I treat hunting. And I think a lot of people have the misconception that it's just like this bloodthirst thing.
Yeah,
and this is the exact opposite. It's the closest connection that you could get to like harvesting or foraging your own protein.
Yeah, you won't find a population of people that have more respect for the natural world and the flora and fauna that live within it, because they understand how it can quickly go away through some BS regulation or rule that somebody who's never done any hunting and barely probably ever goes outside is not going to implement these new rules in an area or something over hunting. And I think when you have the opportunity to get hands-on in that sort of experience, you like yourself, you're like 36 hours I was feeding my family off of this animal, and that's the same sort of thing, like the tags you put in. I know just for Marissa and I talking, I've got a mule deer and an elk tag, and she's got an elk tag, and our strategy is like, all right, meat. This is what it's about, and then the tanning of the hides and the bone work and all the other things that will come with it. It's like we strategize how we go about doing this and how
your guys' perception is so different than just the average sportsman. I think it's so cool. It's brought it back to that more of that connection with, starting from a rock. And then the full circle, man. I think that's huge. And I think that's kind of the connection that I get with hunting, even though I'm not doing it that way. And I think most hunters, probably 90% of them, are feeling that sort of, that's kind of why they do it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, in my opinion, or at least the hunters that I hang out with, I don't hang out with every hunter, but majority of them, it's all kind of that connection to nature.
For sure.
And I think it's so cool what you're doing with these sort of classes and offering this to the general public, because I think it's the best entry thing that you could do into hunting. It's the safest.
Yeah.
I mean, short of cutting your hand potentially, but like you'll guide them along the way. But not only from that, I learned so much from it.
Right on.
Like going into it, because my goal going into it, even though I brought a half-face blade, just homage to Beto, right? That was really the only reason I brought it. But was just to use stone tools.
Yeah.
Completely, right? Like I want to feel what it feels like to be primitive and live in an era where there wasn't a steel, nice, sharp half-face blade in my hand. And it made me appreciate the craftsmanship, the different levels of stress, the time, the care. But not only that, man, it's like the worst thing that you've ever experienced, and that's the best thing I've ever experienced, but one of the hardest things I've probably done in my lifetime was spending 8 hours bent over with you trying to cut through like neck hide or hoof hide with a stone.
It's no joke.
Come on, bro.
It's no joke.
I mean, yeah, you got to put some ass into it and get after it. And like, we were not like slacking. I don't think we really stopped for like a lunch break. I mean, like straight, dude. It was like, we got to get this done before dark hits and before the meat spoils. Like there's this sense of urgency, right?
Absolutely.
So it was a good test for myself. But I tell you what, man, the times where I've complained standing over an elk because I'm down in a hole and my back hurts and I have a razor sharp blade and a bone saw and 2 dudes to help me pack it out.
Doesn't compare.
I'll never complain again. I will never complain again. And I normally am not a complainer, but I don't think I could. There was a smile on my face all day long with you, man. That was such a cool experience.
It was a bloody smile.
Yeah.
And that's I think maybe, I think it's the hunter's job to educate and influence people that might be anti-hunting or, people that are kind of on the fence, is that I think if they went into a deeper process of the hunt, because it's anyone who's ever pulled a trigger, loosed an arrow, you just don't walk out there that day and there's my animal. That's not the game. The weeks and months of scouting and understanding the terrain you're moving from, if they're going to bed down, if they're going to feed, they're going to water, whatever the case may be. There's so many things involved, from prep work to execution to all of the kind of post actions of butchering and whatnot. But I think if we focus more on those instead of the trophy shot on social media, I think there would be a sway, if you know 100%. What I mean.
That's how I try to portray it in here.
Yeah.
And I think that there's some really awesome guys out there like Cam Haynes. I really appreciate the way that he portrays it. Donnie Vincent is another one, man, like yourself. Like I think that is so key and such a cornerstone.
Absolutely. Rather
than just being like it's not trophy. It's not a trophy, man. It's like it's a memento, right?
Yeah.
Like you have a connection. You have a connection with that. Like I have a connection every time I put down my plate.
For sure.
And I think that bison thing was so gratifying to me that's the only dead animal I've ever posted a picture of, or like I haven't even hung it on my wall, but like that's essentially what you're doing on Instagram. You might as well be hanging a picture on your wall, right?
Yeah, and I think people can present however they want, but there's nothing wrong with the presentation. It's the education that can come from that presentation.
Right.
This is what the hide yielded. These is what the bones and the marrow and the intestines and the heart, liver, lungs, even going one step further and like, let's say you did loose an arrow and you were using a specific broadhead. Go into the dynamics on why that broadhead made such an impact and a quick kill on that animal because of the placement, a properly, sized bow at the draw. And I mean, you can actually provide so much more into it than just a couple photos. Like you could probably take down one animal and get really into the weeds if people invested the time. And a lot of hunters do. On why this was effective, why this was a quick kill, the second and third order effects of once that arrow made entry, this is what happened, first and then second, then third. I mean, you could really get into it. And I think what that would do is give people kind of a different vantage point onto different types of hunting and really what it yields not only to the hunter, but to that like environment within itself. By taking out a big bull, you're reducing X, Y, and Z. You're allowing others to grow, and maybe that's an older one. By eliminating some cows, if you get a cow tag, this is what it's doing. So there's so many different ways to approach it. And I think if hunters start to broaden that approach, get some science behind the approach, whether it's environmentally for that specific herd or the tools that they're using, people are going to start to get curious and they're going to want to know a little bit more. Because as we were throwing atlatls at that bison, we went over, projectile drag, wound and overall penetration. We had velocity. We had kinetic energy. We had so many different science things going on that when I loose an arrow at a hog, I know in a lot of different ways what that arrow is going to do because I've crafted the actual arrow, the bow, the projectile point with the proper shot placement. It's quick, but now it's the opportunity for me to educate on why it was quick and what did I do. There's so many things that we could hit that I think sometimes we don't, and we just kind of like to throw that happy snap up.
I couldn't agree more with you on that whole aspect. I think you hit the nail on the head. And I encourage hunters to kind of take that approach, but also I think we get so caught up in our traditions and you learn from your mentors. And like we were talking before we hit record here, is like, you just kind of get stuck in your ways and like, this is the way, or like, I encourage if you are a hunter and an experienced hunter, open your minds to trying some different things too, man. Like, take some of the organ meat, take some of the, I've done that later on in life just because of the connection that I've had, but also it's like having your influence and other people's influence and accepting other people's perspective. I think is huge, or I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today and do what I do and have, it's created a larger and better, more healthy connection for me.
Absolutely.
As a hunter, for my family, like.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's really what I think the goal should be, is like, how can we properly influence people to better educate themselves, know themselves, and seek kind of that self-improvement that could make a huge impact on those people that aren't necessarily in that outdoor or hunting community. I mean, it even goes into like, fishing. I like watching fishing videos because like, I always call it nerdery, but the nerdery that goes into like the proper lure. It's
crazy. Like those bass fishermen and stuff.
It's an art. And it's like, I think, well, I can do that. And I don't do a lot. I like, trout and other various things, but I'm like, I'll try this out. And I'm like, I wonder why it isn't working. Well, it's probably because I'm not educating myself enough in that sort of target animal, that target fish, where they hide, the environment. So it's kind of that,
fly fishing, man. All the little nuance. There's so much, man. Like and that's kind of the closest that I think in a modern society that we come to napping, because there's guys that tie their own flies and use elk hair and use like a lot of those like sort of things to create their own flies and the bugs. And then what do they call the study of bugs? Entomology. Yeah. There's guys that have went and gotten, like my buddy Jack Shurk, shout out.
Yeah.
Went to college to get a degree in entomology so he could fly fish better.
That's a good process,
you know what I mean? Like, it's mind blowing.
It is.
Right?
Well, it's like Marissa and I were going to Central America, and you just saw on my workbench all the bone hooks.
So cool. I hope we got some of that on camera.
I hope so. I mean, but that's like one of the things is like, I can fish, and I like fishing with primitive means, but now there's an opportunity to go to a whole new area, throw some bone hooks in based off all sorts of designs and see what I can yield. I mean, that's just the experimentation. So if somebody might be like anti-fishing or anti-anything, it's like, let's kind of go into that historical context and, kind of show folks where we've kind of progressed and what's, really why it's important. So
that's so cool.
It's a bone hook,
So are you going to be filming down there? Or are you just going for own kind of personal stuff?
We're kind of going like a little vacation just with the book that, it just came out. This is kind of like a little bit of relaxation, but even no matter where we go, I've got to do some like sort of fishing, and we might go hang with some of the Bree tribe, which is a local group of people there that are really into like medicinal plants and cacao and all these different things. So we might do some foraging with them, and there's different opportunities that we've kind of researched and come across. So
super.
So yeah, we'll go down there and play, but we will at some point sit on a beach and drink a fruity drink.
Yeah, umbrella straw. Yeah. You gotta have it.
Yeah, and probably after 15 minutes, I'll be like, I'm gonna go run in the jungle, and because then even there, that's an opportunity to be like, all right, what's sitting right on this coast? Let me see if I can make a friction fire, just to practice. Do I know all the plants? No, but I know properties of the ideal woods to make a friction fire. This is a great opportunity to test it. It's not the entire time. Maybe for an hour. If I come across failure, make some notes on why I failed, time, place, weather, how I felt.
So
put that into something else in the future.
What are you going to be fishing? Are you fishing for a specific type of fish while you're there?
I know there's a lot of like reef and coastal sort of stuff. So there's going to be some snapper. There's some brackish water. I think they have some tarpon. There's various fish species that I can get to with the hand lines that I've constructed. So it's really just going to be good old fashioned hand lines, a lot of soapstone. Weights, I've napped some weights, but all the bone hooks from barb to unbarbed to gouge. I mean, I'm just going to
That's so cool.
Throw them out there. Try to source some, limpets or crabs or things of that I could find on the shoreline as a bait, because a lot of those, tidal fish, they target those sort of species, so it just makes sense to use that bait.
Those hooks were so cool, man. It's like kind of that Pacific Islander type style of hooks and different barbs and stuff that you made. Yeah.
There's a whole variety of them. I mean, and the gouge hook is, if you think of like a toothpick and shrink it down to maybe like 1 or 2 centimeters, tie your line on the middle, cover it with bait, fish goes up, swallows it down and in, and it kind of gets lodged in its gullet. And, you just kind of pull it right out the water because it's turned or it's flipped and it can't necessarily spit it out. So
I love fish too, man. Seafood is so good.
Yeah.
Have you dove into, I'm sure that you have, but like kind of the primitive islander culture at all? Like I'm always curious because I heard that like surfing originated from whale hunters.
Okay.
Right? So they would go out and stand-up paddle surf specifically.
Okay.
Came along before surfing, from my understanding.
Yeah.
Some old surfers told me this, and they were probably stoned, right? Yeah. And I was explaining to them why stand-up paddleboarding was for old men, and and they were like, "Let me tell you something, brah,"
Yeah.
So
give me 3 minutes to tell you.
Yeah. So then I got into stand-up paddle surfing, and I was like, this is so much better. This is so much more effective. I'm not chest deep, nipple deep, freezing my ass off in the Pacific Ocean,
rashes
right?
and stuff.
Yeah, and I'm on a board that I can actually stand up and move around on. I'm out of the water. I can see more. I can hunt more.
Yeah.
So I think the original concept was they were hunting off of it, and I'm wondering if they were using atlatls, because it kind of makes sense, because they were spearing whales.
Yeah.
And then they would put all this whale meat on this giant board, and when they were coming back in, they were beach dwelling tribes, right?
Yeah.
So the surfing in was kind of the celebration, like we're gonna fucking eat tonight, So that's how they explained it to me. I was like, that makes total sense, and I don't know that. I've never read about this in a book anywhere. I'd be curious to know.
I can't say specifically like to what degree of accuracy based on just my readings and what I know. Very likely was a harpoon of some point, and then a harpoon employed with a means of flotation. So like to spear something out of the water, and we're talking about a whale. So let's just go like with a small scale, like dolphin or, one of the minke whales, relatively small in size. Essentially, like you have to harpoon it and you have to slow it down. And then from that harpooning, you're employing some sort of float, so it can't dive deep and try to evade. It will dive deep, but then it's exerting a lot of energy. Harpoon's pulling on it while the float is at the top of the water. And then it's very, very likely that whole animal would probably be brought back in. And then what we could do is really use the modern like Inuit and Nunavut sort of cultures that exist in the Canadian Arctic and around Canada that still employ traditional harpooning and whale hunting. But a whale is such a large yield, it's going to feed a lot of people. So I would imagine that They probably used stand-up paddle boards, stand-up surfing, something that I sent to identify where they were as far as the execution. Because you can see a blowhole, you can gain a little bit of ground and elevation. The waters are probably very clear. You could see, schools.
Oh, it's crazy.
And then get out there and take.
I got so fascinated with it when I was living in Southern California. I lived like a block off the water.
Right on.
So like around this time of year, the gray whales would start migrating.
There you go.
And I had a group of buddies. We called it harpooning.
Cool.
And we would just go out and you have a gray whale swim underneath your paddleboard, dude, was like the most, you want to talk about pucker factor. It's like,
it's huge.
When you see a bison like do this with his leg, or something, or like scrape the ground, it's about to be on, right?
Yeah.
Like that just puts you in your human element place, right? So it was so cool. And I always thought about that. Like, could you imagine like trying to throw a spear into this? But I've taken those practices and applied them to fly fishing. My favorite way to fly fish now is off the paddleboard because I can, at a high alpine lake, take it up there, blow it up, and get into some of those cliff faces and catch cutthroat. And just like, dude, it's so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, those are all kind of advances, that all have a traditional form. And I think, why the hell not? I mean, if you're out there and you're doing it, I mean, shit, man.
Yeah, it's so much fun, man.
I love fishing from a kayak or, I mean.
Just being on the water.
Yeah, just being on the water is the way to do it,
enjoyed it. I don't think I could have lived in Southern California if I didn't live.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't. I moved onto the beach and never really left. Parked the truck on the weekend. It was beach cruiser and boards. That was it. If you're not checking out the Mountainside Podcast on YouTube, you absolutely should be. If you like the content that we create here and you want to help support the podcast, please take a moment, subscribe to us on YouTube, and hit that notification bell.
It's even when I was stationed in Okinawa, I lived right on this cove, and I'd paddle out there on this sit-on-top, kayak, and I probably had 100, 150 yards of like real shallow water and coral and whatnot, and then eventually it would drop off and it would go like dark, and it always gave me a pucker factor. But I knew if I paddled out there and parked my kayak with a little coffee can weight right on the edge, fell off the edge and just floated down, grabbed a couple rocks and just let it bring me down, and then I could just see like all these sorts of fish, and I would just spearfish right off that edge.
That is so badass, man.
Go inside, eat them up, cook them right up on this beach, and it was like that same practice has been done for 1,000. You're out there, you see a turtle, you see something else, you see a bunch of school of fish being chased by something else because you're out in that deeper water. It was accessible, and I'm like, I love doing that. I love spearfishing. I love doing those sort of things.
Spearfishing's so much fun, man.
Yeah, it's a blast.
I've gotten to do a little bit of it with just is it Hawaiian sling?
Yeah,
right? It's just like a rubber band on a pole with a little trident at the end. Man, it's so awesome.
It's good.
It's so gratifying. And I think I could get more into that more than like hunting. I enjoy hunting, but like that is fun, man. I enjoy being in the water. I don't like sharks though.
Nobody does. Nobody does.
Scare the shit out of me. I don't like grizzly bears either.
Yeah.
I mean, as fascinating as they are, I'm fascinated by them, but I don't like being around them.
Yeah. Just mitigate that risk. I mean, Merce and I, we actually have some takedown spears. So like even when we go to like Central America, we'll unscrew all the spears, put them in our bags.
Oh, really?
With some masks and snorkels. And when we get there, we just kind of rig them up, and every location is different. But we were spear fishing on this island called Vieques Island, not too far from Puerto Rico, and you're standing on the top of the water. There's all these rocky cliffs, and you're like, okay. As soon as you get in there, it's just like fish everywhere. We're like, yes, we're eating, and just, you have a good time. So,
have you ever seen any of those guys that do like the yellowfin tuna?
Stuff
like. Maddie, pull up a kinetic.
They're like deep water
spearfishing. They make like their own like spear guns and stuff with the floats.
Yeah.
But like some of these tunas, a lot of these guys are former operators or former military guys, and it's kind of like they're
a couple 100 pounds of meat,
Yeah, no, it's crazy, man. Some of these tuna are as big as they are. It's so badass.
I love that show, Wicked Tuna. You ever watch that?
Yeah, that's cool.
I haven't really dove into it.
It's the best show.
I need to catch up.
I've done some spear fishing.
I think it's on Instagram. I think it's Kinetic Spear.
Like I like using a spear gun, but that's a whole different.
Yeah, like, these are actually like guns, man.
Like open water.
It's just the way they capture a lot of it really well. And,
that's the key.
the filming, whoever they're taking out to film with them.
Yeah, all those.
Yeah, check it out. Check out their Instagram. And they're cool dudes. I know a bunch of these. Like Beato's involved with these guys. He's made dive knives for them and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean,
look at that.
Those are beasts, man.
So they spear these things and then they have these crazy floats.
Yeah.
That like just slow it down because you're not going to hang on to that thing.
That's what we were talking about. You got to have those floats.
So it's still a primitive style of.
Oh yeah, I mean you're getting into their terrain.
Yeah,
they have the advantage in every way. You get in there and take something like that, absolutely, man.
Yeah, they have some great stuff. It's a great follow, and they build just these beautiful, beautiful spear guns, man. They're all made out of wood. And, it's cool.
I love them.
Some craftsmanship behind it too.
Yeah, when I was in Okinawa, living right on that water, I was getting into it heavily because the yield was there. This is like between deployments and stuff, but there was all sorts of fish. Whether it was with us, I mean, like the guns like that. I mean, that's got some.
Yeah, those are crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
No, it's so cool. I'm fascinated. I can watch this stuff for hours, man. Just makes me want to go do it.
Nice.
Yeah. But I think the Hawaiian sling is how I prefer going. I got to do some of that up in northern Montana. I had an uncle up there that big into scuba, and some of those rivers there are like 60 feet deep, and there's bull trout in them that are like the size of a tarpon, man. Like it's crazy.
They're monsters.
It's so crazy, man. But the wild salmon up there and stuff is so cool. And I think the eeriest feeling I've ever had in the water was up there in a lake.
Yeah, those lakes get you.
It was, I'm not going to name the lake because I'll get bastardized by some family members, but it's kind of like a traditional place that we've been. And my uncle being heavily involved with scuba up there, I think he's like to like a search and rescue scuba certification, which is pretty high.
Yeah.
And, I never did. I always just snorkeled above them. Yeah. But the lakes are so clear and just so beautiful. Like there's all this sort of like stone at the bottom of it, that looks like church, like the reds and the blues. And the water looks like the Caribbean. It looks like turquoise. And you can see like the clarity is like you can see 60, 70, 80 feet deep, right?
That's unreal, man. That's
unreal. So it's cool. You'd see a bubble from his scuba rig come up, and it was like this big by the time it got to the surface. But he took me to this one spot, and in this lake, it was crystal clear blue like that, but there's just a black hole. And I think it's like a volcano, and it's probably maybe 100 yards by like 70 yards wide. So it's just a giant hole. And he's like, nobody's been to the bottom of that we know of, like, or where it ends or like what you meet on the other side. It's so fascinating. But just to snorkel over that, you're like, you're looking down. Shit.
Do as quick as you can.
Yeah. That stuff that pucker factor again. Yeah.
That freaks me out. I mean, I remember one time off that little cliff in Okinawa, I dropped down and I was just looking for anything to shoot to eat. And as when there's cloud cover, it's a little bit darker. So when the sun's out, it's a little bit more clear. So it's nice and clear. And all of a sudden clouds moved in. I couldn't see it, but you can tell just by that shift of clarity and how it gets a little bit darker. And I was like, I should probably go to the top. And I was like, well, maybe I'll hang for like another like 10, 15 seconds. And I'm hanging there. And all of a sudden I just felt like something was behind me. And I just kind of did that like swimming turnaround thing. And as I turned around, there was this giant ray just coming like the devil out of hell, just doing this, coming right at me. And I did like one of those and like pushed away. And I started going towards the top and it took off. I jumped back in my kayak, went straight to land and was just like, never again. Because it was just like that unknown thing came out of the darkness, scared the hell out of me. And then I was back out the next day. But it was just enough where it left an impression. So it's even like seeing sharks in the water sometimes when you're, spearfishing. You're like, typically they want nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
They really don't. I mean, they might be curious.
I don't think I've ever seen a white shark in the water.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of leopard sharks that are like kind of curious.
Yeah. Black tips, white tips. Yeah. In Hawaii, there was a lot when we were on.
Yeah, that's a different level.
Yeah, like
I'd love to go like see a whale shark, man. That was
That'd be
always
cool.
like
that'd be really cool.
They're so fascinating, so beautiful, man. So big.
Yeah, Philippines. There's the island's called Cebu.
Okay,
and that's like a whale shark like haven. It's a big kind of touristy area in the middle central middle portions of the Philippines, and there's just whale sharks all through. I guess you can literally like snorkel and.
I guess I want to say I've never seen a white shark surfing. Like one of the coolest things I've ever done was down in the Cape of Africa, like Cape Town, Cape Town, South Africa. We did a tourist like guided thing when I was doing rock tours out there.
Cool.
Where they drug this like little dummy behind the boat and white sharks breached the water.
So that's enough. I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Dude.
That's no joke.
They are so big, man.
Yeah.
It's like a bison coming straight out of the water and so athletic.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I guess there's been a larger population of white sharks up around like Massachusetts and all that area. There was one recently that I think they were tracking where it was going, but they were like, this is like something right out of Jaws. There's people swimming in the water, and there's like this 18-foot white shark just swimming around because it's looking for all the seals that are around there.
Oh yeah.
This is Cape Cod? Yeah, Cape Cod. Yeah. And they're just there, so now they're like having
It's one of my favorite spots on the East Coast, but that is Jaws, right? Isn't that
Jaws.
where it took place?
Yeah, so the whole thing was like them like deploying more drones to kind of get that overhead imagery and like kind of status on these
18
sharks.
feet.
Something of that. I mean, it was no joke. But I mean,
That's wild.
seals, people swimming on the beach, drinking a Corona, and be like, I'm going to take a dip, you know?
Yeah, you have no idea. Have you heard about cocaine sharks?
No. I'm
so
assuming,
they're
I
finding
used to see
these.
some of those at the raves.
I used to be one. No, they're finding these sharks. Maddie, yeah, you got to look this up. So I don't know if it's
they traffic it with a
not the movie, but they're legitimately finding sharks now that have traces of cocaine in them and are overly aggressive and attacking people.
See, what are we doing, folks?
I know.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Like,
it's like Cocaine Bear. That's based on a true story, you know? Like, even as Hollywood as it gets, like...
We're giving, like, a super predator even more superpowers. That does not make sense to me.
Yeah.
Jesus. Cocaine shark. That's a bad day.
Yeah.
God dang. Cocaine dumped in the sea, Florida.
Yeah, just legalize everything. We won't have these issues, man. Let people kill themselves, not let cocaine sharks do it.
Jesus.
No, it's pretty crazy.
Anything's possible. I guess.
It is. I think one of the things that I learned the other day when we were napping that I never really thought about is we got into like, you had so much stone in your garage that like,
you got a lot.
How much you've carried and like, this is so cool, man. It's like how you find it, where you find it. And it never really occurred to me until I was driving home because my brain doesn't work that fast with all the CTE and stuff. But to bring it back to sea life and stuff, a lot of the stone you were telling me, you know, it's a specific type of stone that you want to use to create something like this. You could create it out of any sort of rock, but you're not going to get it as sharp. It's not going to be as workable, right? Like this is almost like a glass sort of really super hard and naturally kind of sharp stone.
Yeah.
And then there's different like volcanic stones and stuff, but a lot of the stuff that you like to use and a lot of the points that I've found, I think I've only found one obsidian point and I've found hundreds that are made from chert.
Yeah. So
is it chert?
Yeah. So like chert is kind of the general term. So it's called flint knapping because, you know, flintlock rifles, knoppers to break, to remove. But chert is kind of the macro, if you will. Flint, there's a certain number of flints. Like you have Danish flint, you have Black English flints. Those are like true flints. And a lot of those are ancient sea life that's been compressed over millions and billions of years. And it has a layer of cortex, so this kind of white stuff, this chalky material on the outside. So that's a type of stone. A lot of stuff is just referred to as cherts. But once you kind of dive into it, like we have obsidian, we have a chert, we have an agate, and we have some Keokuk over there. And over there we have some novaculite. So there's all sorts of different stone, but the stone is really based on if the stone can break in a conchoidal fracture. So when you shoot a BB gun at a windshield, it creates that 90-degree cone.
So much fun.
Known as the Herzigan cone. If you can replicate that through your strikes on stone, then it's a desirable stone. It's typically there's not a lot of features. It's waxy, it's glassy, it's kind of smooth, it's featureless, breaks in that conchoidal fracture. More importantly, with every strike, you can plan it. So if you take a piece of granite, it's a lot of conglomerate, a lot of little fine pieces all kind of glued together, if you will. If you were trying to drive something smooth and flat across it like a stone flake, it's just going to terminate and it's going to break abruptly. With a lot of these that are essentially glasses, well, I mean, obsidian is a glass, a volcanic glass. It's easy to break. So you have a variety of stones all throughout the world that can be used for jaspers and chalcedonies, and you have sedimentary rocks that have been compressed over time that are now knappable. You have...
Would petrified wood work?
Petrified wood is one because...
Can you break it like?
You can, because if you get the right pieces, you can absolutely...
That would be so cool. It'd be like a Damascus arrowhead or something.
I mean, there's some funky... I mean, there's a type of stone called mookite out in Australia that's like orange and reds and all sorts of different colors. And if you find a type of stone that is knappable in its raw form, you can use it. If you find a type of stone that when you hit it, it breaks in a conchoidal fracture, but it's not the most ideal. There's a little bit of granular to it. It's not as smooth. You can actually heat treat it, change the composition of it, and make it better for future use. So a lot of ancient cultures, they would have a source stone in and around the area where they were. They would heat treat it by a slow introduction of heat over time and then rapid heat. And you can do this naturally out in the bush just with fire, but it would change it chemically and it makes it more knappable. So like novaculite, that
this white one?
Yeah, that white one. It comes in different colors and whatnot, but once you apply certain types of heat, it will go from whites, it will go to pinks, it will kind of go to like purpley colors, and it's pretty ideal at that point. So novaculite, it's found in Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Utah. I mean, they're found everywhere. And then you have some stone like basalt, and majority of our planet is covered in basalt. Some basalt is great for knapping. Some of it's horrible, but basalt is also a strong stone, so you can grind it into axe heads. You can do a lot of different sort of things with stone to produce, a tool. So
I got to take you to some of my spots.
Yeah, man, bring me.
We got to do that.
I'm down.
Because I never really thought about it. It is an old, dried up, I think it was ocean at one point, millions of years ago or however long ago. So it kind of makes sense. And the arrowheads that we've found there are these just like beautiful, like speckled, like they'll be like a bright orange speckled with like black or red, or sometimes it's two-tone, like a red and a yellow mixed.
So like a jasper. And so sometimes
I don't know what it is. Like
you find it in Colorado?
Yeah.
So usually you'll find like a yellow jasper here in Colorado, and then when there's a fire, it will actually change, like a natural forest fire.
Change color.
It will change a color into a red, so you can kind of get these mixes of colors. But if you bring me, we could do another video, and we can go over exactly how to source.
Let's go get some stone, because I need some stone to nap now, right? And I think that's the biggest part, is trying to find a stone. And it takes... To make something like this, it takes a much larger piece than I thought.
Yeah, it takes a big chunk.
I always just envisioned that, a chunk that was this big would make 20 arrowheads. Yeah. I guess it would if you hit it right. If you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you took that chunk, I'd say probably out of that piece, based on what's on the inside, because there could be an old crystal or a concretion on the inside, could throw it all off.
Or like that chunk of obsidian that I brought you was all air pocketed.
Yeah, it was all air pockets. So you can do a lot with stone, but like this right here would be enough stone for you to go out and live off of for a couple months. You could create drills, arrow points, all sorts of cutting tools, simple cutting tools. But when you have a source, like there's some sources out in Utah I go for chalcedony, and there's just this vein of chalcedony that's along this 3-mile ridge. Civilization's been going there. People have been going there for thousands of years. You can find the hammerstones, you can find the flakes on the ground, and you can see nothing but just a white field of broken rock. Wow. I go through there, pick out a couple pieces. I'm like, I like it. Coming home. And that's BLM land. And like if you're collecting resources on stone,
what are the kind of the laws behind some of that stuff?
Private property is private property. You can do what you want. BLM is probably the best, and what they allow is surface collection, meaning that if it's sitting on the surface, or you kind of slightly have to remove it, you can take it, but you can only take a bucket per person per day.
Really? So they have limits to it.
Yep.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. And every,
so no digging, like you can't.
No digging. You can't like.
So what if the rock's half buried? Is that considered surface stone? Or?
You just don't tell anyone. No. Yeah. I mean, if it's sitting on the surface and it doesn't require a lot of effort, you're good to go. But every BLM department might have different rules and regulations based on what, Paleo Indian cultures, indigenous cultures, lived in that area. So you might have to get a rock permit where it might be $5.
Really?
Yeah. Or you can go in and just know that you really can't go wrong if you're collecting a bucket, 5-gallon bucket, because it presents a non-commercial kind of value to it. If you're going out there and you've got a trailer full of rocks, somebody's doing something with that for some sort
commercial
of commercial value or building or something to that extent. But if you got a bucket, there's typically nothing wrong with that. But it's real easy anywhere you go when it comes to like national parks, state parks, BLM land. Just go on their website and just Google rock hounding. Like type in rock hounding, Bureau of Land Management, Utah, and it will list it right for you. Yeah, surface collection is fine, no mining, no digging, and you go. So, you travel with a bucket in your car, you find a cool place, put some great pieces in there, and away you go.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I definitely want to. It's speared a new hobby for me that I hope that I have time for, man. Yeah. I think that's the coolest part is you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, really, right?
Really. Yeah.
And they have for millions of years potentially, right? Like,
literally.
Yeah.
Millions of years. I mean, I think one of the unique things about, flint knapping and stone tools is it is something that is not easy. Like it is probably, when it comes to the primitive skills world, there's not a lot of people that go down the flint knapping path. Most will try, but they give up pretty damn quick when they can't produce large blades and airplanes.
Having your mentorship, like I encourage you to take a class or go get this book, right? Or subscribe to your YouTube. Yeah, I mean, you can learn so much.
A lot.
From just that, but like,
well, it's kind of ironic.
Your 10,000 hours helped me in my 3 hours make this, right? Like, so that's, and really you made a lot of this.
Well, it's sometimes like when demonstrating, it's for you to see it, it allows you to replicate.
Yeah.
Be like, all right, this is how he's holding and doing and popping a flake. But what you quickly learned is like, this is a whole different set of like hand muscles and skills.
Oh,
and
now
leverages.
I know why your forearms are so big and stuff. Every time I give you a hug, I'm like, God damn, Donnie.
It's all
a ball of meat.
It's
dude.
Popeye.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things. And like, if you, I
got to go find an old Thigh Master or something, right? It was kind of like,
and like one of those guitar things that you, like,
no, because you like use your leg. There's so much force when you're getting down to like, when you're putting down pressure on
flaking.
Antler, pressure flaking, you have to use your legs and your arms and its grip strength and
one motion.
Yeah.
Pop. And you're like, oh, what the hell? And I mean, and it's...
Was that your back? Was that the sound his back made? The pop?
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that I've been completely fascinated with, since I was a young kid. Just how did we do it? How did we go from, where we were millions of years ago to now? And it's really attributed to, I mean, when you think about it, stone tools like this Tenerin disc comes from Africa. Well, this is one that I made, but
that is just so cool. Would they use that for like scraping or
this was a cutting tool?
Okay.
It was also a hafted tool that they could put into a branch to use as an axe. I mean, there's a lot of theories behind it, but we find this circular disc in different portions of Africa. So some people are like, maybe it was a currency. I'm like, well, just because it's a coin doesn't mean it, looks, but you come in different sizes. But as I was using this on a bison, I mean, this was really great because I had 360 degrees. So as I was cutting here, I felt it got a little dull. I could shift it and cut, shift it and cut. And it's kind of changed its shape a little bit just through pressure flaking, but circles are hard to make.
What's the history behind that one? What has it done? Because I always I'm fascinated with that. Like, that's why when you made me these, they were so beautiful and pristine and perfect. But if you look at them now,
little loved.
Yeah, little
butcher time.
Yeah, they were used. They were all used, right?
And that's what this was. This was for the last class that I did on butchering. I had 7 or 8 tenor-in discs, large to small. And being that where these are found in Africa, they date to I think it's just over 15,000 years ago. So I would say relatively new in that African timeline as far as, evolution of people. But the cutting tool itself is a cutting tool, meaning that you can cut 360 degrees with it and be able to nap a circle. A perfect circle is hard to do because circles, they're the hardest things to draw flawlessly. I think it wasn't Da Vinci. Someone said, draw me the most beautiful thing, and he drew a perfect circle because it's so complicated to do.
Great band, by the way.
But with this, it's a cutting tool. And then the theories behind it is not only was it a cutting tool, but it could be hafted. So it was a multi-tool. From a knife to a sort of light, chopper, hafting, throw it into an axe handle and get it in there. But you can also wedge with it.
So when you say hafting, I know this, but just for the people that are listening, it's where you're attaching some sort of handle, like an axe handle or a knife handle,
exactly,
or some sort of wood or
attachment of two things together. Yeah,
a foreshaft and an atlatl.
Exactly. So you put a handle on there, you've got a real kind of quick field expedient sort of axe for chopping. A shovel. You could use
hoe.
You could use it as an adze. You could use it as a spade. You could use it as a lot of things. But it's a big bifacial form, 360 degrees of cutting. And I mean, you can take apart a bison.
It makes sense, man, because I found in that bison experiment that you and I were on, that you graciously invited me to, was I started getting hand cramps before. I'm used to being bent over and field dressing, and I kind of train. The whole reason that I train on a daily basis is around hunting. So I train my lower back and do stuff with kettlebells, and that's why I hike, and that's why I run and stuff like that. It's all hunting based stuff that I'm going to be doing, so I'm better at that. But I found with my hands, I was so used to holding onto a handle or like a grip blade that we quickly improvised, wrapping a piece of leather around it so I could get more of a grip on it. Mm-hmm. And that makes a lot of sense because the bigger the tool is, or something like this, it's big.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
When you think about, you use that for 3 hours, 4 hours, however long.
8 hours.
8 hours. It's a lot of, muscle movements and whatnot. So, I mean, everything kind of serves its purpose. And I think the cool thing with some of these stone is if that wasn't working for you, you can quickly adapt it into something else. You can elongate it, take off some of the edges, get it a little bit longer, and turn it into some sort of other.
Still got some hair and meat on there.
Yeah,
some jerky.
I never clean them, man.
That's awesome.
That's part of the story to it. But
I thought it was so cool coming up and hanging out with you.
Right on, man.
And doing this was just like the bison experience. It's one of the coolest things I've ever done, man. It's so cool to take a rock and turn it into this at the end of the day. Even though I didn't do it all myself. But I think it's so fascinating, and it's just the connection that I have with it. But then just learning how much of an actual craftsman or master that you are at it and how much time you've put into it. But I thought one of the coolest things is I've always been fascinated by tools, whether it's power drills, power hammers, a forge. I mean, tools are amazing, right? And the engineering that goes behind it, and how long some tools have been around, like a hammer.
It's been around.
Right? And I thought it was so cool with all the billets that you had. Like the moose antler one. We picked that up. Go, if you haven't watched this episode On the Mountainside, go check it out. The billets, I think we talked about, and I picked up, you had that moose billet in there.
Yeah, heavy.
That thing could kill somebody on its own. It has no sharp edge. It's got a rounded edge that, man. It's just a big hammer.
That's it. It's really, its sole purpose is to grip the edge of a rock and then rip a flake off. That's it in its simplest function. And the bigger the rock, the bigger the billet. But as you get to a smaller, chunk, you've got to use a smaller billet, if you will. So when you have a big old piece, you start with the moose.
Yeah.
You just kind of work it
and
down.
then getting down into the fine tuning. So if this was like a brow tine or something at one point, right? Or an antler tip, you know, you're using that. So to bring it back to full circle, like whatever you harvest is now like
a tool.
It's not just hanging on your wall.
Yeah.
It's a tool.
It's a tool, man.
It's so badass to me because that's how I've always kind of like I've always donated my antlers to knife makers and stuff that I appreciate and stuff. And like, yeah, man, turn this into something like I want it to be.
For sure.
Like not just hanging on the wall. Like I guess I do have some Euro mounts and stuff that are sentimental.
Yeah.
You know, but I just think it's so cool to utilize it. It's just that it proves kind of that circle of life and
it's one of those things where like you kind of got to see the reasons why hunt was not only the food, but the tools that come from those animals, whether it's the bones, the antlers, the hide, you pick it, like I'm going to use it for years to come. You know what I mean? And you saw how many, you know, sheds and antlers that I had in there. Like all of those over time will get cut up and worked into new flint knapping tools. Somebody might want a primitive set. I can make them a primitive set, or I'm using them myself for, you know, for any number of things. But like that is, you know, Donny Depot. It's
Matt coined it. We got to get you some shirts made, dude.
the Home Depot aprons.
Yeah.
it's just like an animal.
A leather. No, just the loincloth, dude.
Yeah, I could do
An orange loincloth.
Oh, man.
Buckskin. Here you go, dude. No, that's awesome. Bark tanned.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, just the tanning. Like, I think that's what's so fascinating about it because I've always been like, oh, I use everything from the animal, but I really don't, right? Yeah. Like everything is a resource to you. And I think that's so fascinating. And to the point, like you don't even have to be a hunter for everything to be a resource. You could still consume protein.
Yep.
You don't have to kill anything.
Pretty much.
You could just find something, right?
Yeah.
You could pick up an antler shed. You're not hunting.
Yeah.
It's something that naturally falls off of an animal, just like a berry falls off of a tree.
Exactly.
You can make one of these stone projectiles or a tool to cut down dandelion greens and make you a dandelion green salad, right? Or like all this. There's just so many resources that I think that we've lost that connection.
For sure.
100%.
Like taking that antler, and I have, I think, some videos of shorts, but sometimes they take antlers and I'll take a burn, which is a stone chisel, and I'll put a groove all the way to the tip.
Oh yeah. You made like a sickle or something.
A sickle where then I put all these little microliths or microblades, and then it's just a sickle for cutting grasses.
You had one hanging in the cave,
I did,
right? Yeah.
There's so many weird tools. There might be one floating around there, but like even like smashing the bones, like if you go up, you know, like I love marrow. That right there is what we did.
Marrow's so good.
Yeah. On the last experiment, I just sat there and smashed it. And they're like, is it safe to eat? I'm like, marrow's real safe. As long as your animals are, you know, free range and it's good for you. And then we took the bison ribs, put them over the coals, and I was smathering them full of marrow, and we just had bison ribs as like as a lunch the next day with marrow covered. It was delicious.
That's all, and I mean you're utilizing everything at that point.
Yeah, I mean that's so good. And then all those bone shards, those are back home. Those will be knives, arrow points, different blades.
Is that a solid chunk of marrow?
Yeah.
It's the crab meat of bison.
Yeah,
it really
is. Like you can pull it out and it comes out like as thick as a banana, like in a leg bone.
Holy shit!
So and a lot of people cut them and they grill them and stuff. I just right down the pipe, man.
Really, just raw.
Just raw. It's 100% delicious in every way, man. I eat it nonstop. It's just good. You know, that's a salutrian, you know, point right there. I mean, look. Abrasion. Yeah. Now I'm just focusing it.
I think I used that tool the other day with you. Is that the caribou?
That's the caribou.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
I thought that was fascinating too. Just the engineering that you've put behind, you know, different antlers from different species of animals give differently, or stronger in certain points, or heavier, or like.
Like the moose is
all
ideal.
The tools.
Billets, whitetail are great for light billets. Long, you know, tines on elk because they're pretty dang hard. That's great for doing some popping. But like that little caribou split, which is the long portion of a caribou, I split it and it gives and it's super, super strong. And they all taste
I should have never brought my box. I'm so embarrassed now, dude. I was like, I had a little antler shed. I was like, I'm going to cut this up. It'll be perfect for you. Like, yeah. And I had no idea. I had to go to school real quick.
Nah, you're
it's
good.
So badass.
It's just part of it.
And I think, you know, as much as you can get out of this book, that real life experience.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it.
That's the manifesto in the front, you know. Get out there.
This is so badass too. This is available everywhere now, right? Like Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, Amazon.
Number one. Hey, hell yeah.
I don't even know. Where does that say that?
Let's go. Number one new indoor or outdoor. I was like, that fucked me up.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
It's also number 5.
Hey!
It should be.
Number 6.
Damn. All
My
right.
parents are probably putting a lot of ratings on there, but yeah, there's the audio book.
Yeah, Maddie, let's leave a rating right now. I've already read it twice, and I have the audiobook to go listen to now too. So I'm a big audiobook guy.
Yeah, it was. Oh god, we're gonna listen to it.
Did you read it?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
How grueling is that?
The river is a permanent stream that meanders through a deep canyon, sometimes resting in quiet pools or trickling through cascades in small waterfalls.
It wasn't hard. It was like 4 days of recording, like a Tuesday and a Thursday and a Tuesday and Thursday. And I didn't have to do like any pickups or anything. I guess it's easier to read it when you write it. So I just kind of read it. But then there was times where I'd get like, oh God, I'm getting tired, sitting and then like reading the book that you've read 1,000 times. But I think it was just more important to like my voice telling my stories, my stuff.
So as an audiobook fan, that is my favorite way to take it in is when the author reads it. Like, I love Jack Carr. I love all of his writing, no disrespect. And Ray, I think it's Ray Potter who reads his stuff. He's crazy, dude. Yeah. He does like all these different accents and stuff. So for fiction, I can kind of understand that.
I like it.
Except for please hire a woman to do the women's voice. Because it is a total boner killer, dude. Like, you know what I mean? It's just
Cynthia,
like,
what do you think? I think it's fine. You're like, oh my God.
No, but he tries to do like a female. It's actually like you should go and listen to some of Jack's stuff. Like, and just amazing. Like, you don't know if it's fiction or not. It's like, this really happened, or is this like,
that's cool.
Jack's an amazing writer, and that whole series is awesome, and it's under the same umbrella. I think it's Simon and Schuster.
He's with Simon and Schuster. Yeah. I think there's a couple folks that are with it, but this is like Simon and Schuster's like first survival book, if you will.
Hell yeah!
So it was kind of a new world for them, and this is my first book that I've published with the publisher. So that was kind of a new world for me.
I think I might have given away the other.
I can bring more.
But you have several other books out too. There's kind of like
Scavenger, Earthworm. Those are all self-published. As I was getting into writing, I was like, I want like 100% autonomy in my own decision, and it was good. I enjoyed it, but just with Wild Wisdom, it's a longer process that I wasn't quite aware of. And like, because I announced in February that the book was available for pre-order, but it wasn't coming out till August 6th. So I'm like, it just hurts my brain to think like nobody's going to buy it if they can't have it. Like we live in a different world where it's like, I want to buy it today and get it tomorrow. But I'm like, someone buying it in February, it's different compared to getting it, 5 months later. So I struggled with a few things, but now that it's here, I can breathe easy and just hopefully people enjoy it.
Oh, that's awesome. Definitely go and check it out. It's not just, I think we were discussing this before we hit record.
Yeah.
It's not just primitive stuff. I think that's one of the coolest things that you've done. It's not just, if your interest isn't napping arrowheads or learning how to create fire, you'll teach somebody how to sharpen a kitchen knife, right?
Sharpen a knife, man. Yeah.
Everybody needs to know how to do that. Get your car unstuck.
That's what I mean. It's a good approach for people that are wanting to dive a little bit deeper into kind of their own personal outdoor pursuits. And what I don't do is give you rules to live by, but more of like methodologies, my approach, a way, not necessarily the way, but it should give people an opportunity to say like, this guy's done it this way. And I've heard this person over here does it this way. I'm going to kind of make my own. Cause I don't like to live by the rules of the outdoors. It's not fun. It stifles your curiosity and your creativity. So I just want people to to go outside. Here's a little bit about me, some of my approaches, and then here's some skills that wouldn't be a bad thing to know, whether it's high tech, low tech, or no tech. Using a lighter to start a fire or doing a friction fire. All those are options. You can pursue one, you can pursue the other, but here's a couple examples,
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of stuff there. Oh, look at this. I didn't even know this was a thing.
Tracking, different blade
different knives,
use. Yeah.
Sleeping in caves, different tarp shelters. Like a tarp
I think
is
that's why it's
easiest.
so important to definitely get the hard copy, because of all the illustrations are amazing. Like,
put your hand tattoos.
Yeah, had a great illustrator. But even if you get the audiobook, it comes with a PDF with everything in there. So like when I'm in the audiobook, it will say reference, PDF, image, whatever. So
yes.
you download it, you get all of this as well.
But I'm a tangible copy
I
in
like
your
it too.
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just go get both.
Bobby's going to have that book colored by the end of the week.
This is an absolute must-have
Appreciate it.
for all children.
Yeah.
I think, man.
Yeah.
Instead of giving your kids a bunch of bullshit to read,
Yeah.
or and this is nothing. There's nothing graphic in this. There's nothing that's going to scar your kids.
Nah, man.
It's genuine skills that for everyday life, man.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we're missing now when we go into this digital age and people are inside and people want to get their kids outside. This will get them interested, man.
Yeah.
I read this book and I was like, I had to put it down because I was like, I got to go try this shit, man. So it's like a good interactive book. It's not just to sit down, relax, and kind of read, or and what better skills to have, especially if you're in the outdoors. You never know when you might not have that lighter with you and you have to create fire without it, right? So it's goes back to survival and just the knowledge, right? It's more knowledge.
It goes to some traditional survival skills, but more importantly, embracing your human creative side.
Yeah.
We all have that skill in all of us. And this book is trying to slap you across the face, give you wake up. Don't forget, you still are creative. You are a problem solver. You're a critical thinker. Here's some of the things that I do. What are yours? If you don't know, maybe this will help, or it will lead you down a Google path to find something else, but it's kind of like a rewilding book, because there's a lot of outdoorsmen out there and there's a lot of people that don't go in the outdoors, and it's best for both worlds, because the people that are maybe only hiking or geocaching or fly fishing or whatever, this might be don't forget about these things. These are always factors and that could happen, little variables here and there. And for those that are looking to dive into it, here's an approach, a way, not necessarily that way. So it covers a lot of, audience types, if you will. And it was, that was my focus with this one, because as I'm working on other books, specifically into lithics, that's a much smaller audience. This is a much broader audience that I think can really, impact some people. So I've already gone to Barnes and Noble and there's my book. I'm like, holy shit. That's good. It's cool, but
You got to put some Easter egg hunts in there, man.
yeah.
One thing that I first thought of this, and I was so gracious to get a copy several months ago from you, man. You're so generous, Donnie, man. I'm gonna have to get a bigger studio so I can, so we can put all your stuff on display. With the photos and the illustrations are it's amazing.
Right on.
One of the things that I've struggled with being a dad with young kids and them growing up was children's books. And one of my favorite children's book to read my kids, and I had to get real selective because culture starts putting their influence into children's books, right?
Yeah.
And it's I don't think we really realize it's just a poison, right?
Yeah.
You're just handing them.
Yeah.
So I encourage parents to read what you're feeding your children, because you never know what the hell you're going to find in there. And then there's so many companies like Disney and stuff, and not to knock them specifically, that have taken some cultural approaches that I don't align with, and I don't think should be taught to kids, right, at a young age. Have you ever thought about doing a wild wisdom for kids, just a real entry level, here's how you trap a bug, or whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
Stuff to pique their curiosity and my favorite children's book of all time is actually by one of our sponsors, is Jocko Willink.
Oh, okay.
It's look this up, Maddie, so I don't get it wrong. I encourage you to go get it. You can go on YouTube. There's an audio illustrated version that my kid loves too. It's Mikey and the Dragons, I think, is the name of the book. And it's about facing fear.
Okay.
Losing a family member in it.
Yeah.
And how you push through that. And dude, it's so cool. It's done so well, man. Like, hit the nail on the head. And it's a good, I mean, every kid deals with fear. And, my kids love the book. I've gifted this to a bunch of people.
Cool.
So I think the more that we can do that, you know. Then hand them this one.
I discuss fear in here. My approach might be a little bit different than everyone else's. But I mean,
well, in this children's book, I encourage you to read it to make sure that you want. But after this kid's dad dies, he goes into his war chest and finds a letter, to his son, and like, it's pretty cool.
I'll check it out.
It's really done really well.
I mean, I've thought about doing some young readers books, young adult books. So you remember, like, Where the Red Fern Grows and Summer of the Monkeys. Good. Those are the books that I remember reading and being like, holy cow, this is like right down my, like, sitting on a pony with a 22, chasing down monkeys or hunting whatever it was. I'm like, this is Hatchet. I mean, My Side of the Mountain, The Far Side. I'm like, those are the sort of books that I think really resonated with me. So I don't know if I would write maybe a children's book, but like a young, teenage boy, teenage girl, 13 to maybe like 7 or 8, like, because that's the stuff that I feel like that is right around the time parents start to say, here you go, here's, an iPad, here's a phone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can go on social media. And I think, like, since I didn't have to battle that as a kid, it was something I had to work with my 2 sons.
Do both, man. Hit all 3 demographics or 7 or whatever it is, man. I think I
could do it.
Yeah.
Why not? I've got the other books I'm working on are all for the Stone Tool people.
Yeah.
those
I'll be buying those for sure.
Those are the good ones. But yeah, man, it's definitely a good run. I've enjoyed it. There's one other thing I want to talk about, and I don't know if you can go to
the platform is yours. I'll shut up now.
So. If you go to DonnyDust.com, and there's an organization that I don't know, is it on there? Yeah, there it is. And let's see. If you scroll down to this group that I started working with, it's called Survival Mastery. And Survival Mastery is a collective group of survival, bushcraft, homesteaders, blacksmiths, botanists, all different walks of life that are kind of coming together underneath the Survival Mastery banner to provide real, unedited, as far as, if you're trying to do a demonstration on how to make a fire and you fail, we're not going to cut that out. Like, this is people that are in that survival bushcraft outdoor
It's not
community.
for Hollywood. It's not for entertainment.
Exactly. This is an education platform where
so cool.
You can go and essentially learn. And I'm going to be doing a lot of classes for Survival Mastery where they're going to be filmed by professional crews with the idea of teaching long form, mid form, and short form. And the idea is to really leverage people with a ground truth experience. So there's a lot of people that can go on various things and be like, you should do this. This is the reason why. But you got to have this $5,000 knife or this, that, or the other. And Survival Mastery is eliminating all that and saying, we are a group of people, a collective, through experience, through time, through a number of ways that have a ground truth into said name specific skills. And, for me, I joined Survival Mastery a couple months ago, and the launch is in October, and there's going to be a whole collective of classes. So if your thing is homesteading and you want to learn how to properly do different aspects of homesteading or keeping bees or growing vegetables or hunting or pick your poison, Survival Mastery is going to leverage those kind of top experts in that field, put them on that platform to provide those classes from
that is so
start to
badass.
finish. So, Yeah, if you go to DonnyDust.com, you click on the
So
link.
is it an app or something that's available now, or how do you?
So there's a pre-sign up right now.
Okay.
But it can be downloaded to your phone. It's an app. It can go on, and it will go on any device. And essentially, is that link not working?
No, I was going to say,
That's
your dude.
That's me, because I suck at
It could be our
computers.
internet too. Our internet
doesn't
sucks.
have
up here.
when I right click it, it just,
Oh, man.
it should say like.
I
I
suck.
bet if we Google it though.
Yeah, if you Google survival mastery, but I suck at computery stuff. So, but yeah, it's going to be a great opportunity for people to go on there and get like college level master. Remember when Dr. Dre did his master or what was the things that he did?
You think Timbaland on the masterclass?
Masterclass.
Yes.
So this is masterclass for the outdoors. Here's a couple of the different folks that are going to be on here.
Hell yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of
Steve Kelly, I know him.
Yeah, memberships that you can do. Ed Stafford, he's part of the group. He walked through the Amazon. I'm on there.
Ray Livingston. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole collective of people, but it's from all different walks of life. And what it is trying to streamline. If you just want to dive down
looks
that,
like there's some martial artists in there too. That's cool.
I think there might be
Yeah.
Adam Ticknor, Matt Wright. There's a whole collective of people. So I just want to give it a quick plug to say if you want to kind of sign up for any of those details, feel free. It's going to be a great opportunity,
That's so cool.
and it's going to streamline your specific kind of interests, if you will. You're not going to be pushed like anything outside of kind of your window. If your thing is homesteading, awesome. If your thing is beekeeping, blacksmithing, if it is straight survival skills, this is where you can go. More importantly, out of all these people that are here, you're not just going to get a single source of information. So how to make a fire, how to do this. You're going to get a collective of people that have just not done it, meaning that you go out in the bush, you do your bow drill video, turn around and get in your car. These are people that have actually lived it, done it, performed it in various ways. So it's a good collective.
Super rad. I'm totally on board with this, man.
And you kind of like go
Who's
at your
heading-
own pace.
Yeah, it's once you you sign up and everything, you have access to everything. So it's like you sign up, you get access to everything. And if you're going to go camping with your family, and you want to practice bow drill, foraging for food, and some other skill, you can download those videos from your kind of access portal and then go. And they will always be with you. You can come back and re-download more, but there's just going to be a streamlined amount of collective information that will really help give people that kind of self-paced learning. More importantly, the instructors will be reachable at given time. So if you do have questions, because that's important. There's a lot of people on YouTube send me questions and I make an effort to answer them. Some people, they don't. You'll never hear from them. They're like, thanks for the view. I don't really care about you. And that's kind of a poison mentality. And that's not what survival mastery is. So if you do have those things, there will be the opportunity to, chat with those instructors through email, through text. There'll be some live sessions, a variety of things. So it's going to be a really great platform. So many people in the past have tried to do this and it's failed miserably because it's just, if you don't do it my way, you're wrong. And that's not what this is. This is a collective people with ground truth trying to educate folks into really, becoming an outdoorsman, becoming a prepper, a homesteader, a world traveler. All around the world, people from Australia to the UK to South America to North America, instructors that are worldwide.
That's awesome. Yeah. Who's behind this and who's kind of heading it up and putting this all together? Is it?
So there's a couple people right now. It's kind of being launched out of Woodland Park, Colorado, and it was So it is local. There's a gentleman by the name of Bill, EJ, and Kat, and a whole bunch of other people are kind of the I guess you would say the management, the hierarchy of it.
Founders.
Yeah, the founders. They've been putting it together, and then over a period of time, they've reached out to some instructors on exactly what they would like from you. So this
is so cool, man. I'd love to have him on for an episode because it's right up the alley.
Yeah.
And I really like things like this.
Yeah, I'll get a hold of him. He's in Woodland Park, so it's a stone's throw.
Maybe have you guys on together. I don't know if we're capable of having more than
two
just
people.
One
Yeah, man, we could absolutely do it. And I think just a parting shot. There's a lot of great information on YouTube. and TikTok and various social media platforms. But what this is really just like a legitimate ground truth into these people. And it's people that have written books, have worked in TV and film as far as technical experts.
It's super affordable too, man. That is not
individual 135.
Cool.
Duo groups.
And some huge discounts.
Yeah. Because it's going to
sign up.
It's going to launch in October, and prices will kind of.
They're doing a giveaway.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It's gonna be kind of like an outdoor university, I guess you could say. All manner of things. So yeah, I'm kind of I'm excited to be part of it. And I'm going to focus heavily on a lot of stone tools and a lot of primitive skills. But yeah, man, it's going to be a good one.
Super rad.
Right on. Appreciate it. That's my plug.
What else you got going on?
Oh man, aside from that, bison butchering class, October 19 and 20, I still have 2 seats. If somebody wants to sign up, please do.
Yeah.
A lot of bison meat, a lot of hide. Someone's walking away with a skull. We usually flip a flake, like a towing cost, but it's a flake. A towing cost, see what I said there. But yeah, man, that's pretty much it.
That's super rad. Those spots might not be available, so go get them right now. I just got to look at my schedule and make sure. I want to come do that so bad again, man. It's a super cool experience, and I urge you to go and experience for yourself if you have any sort of interest in it, man. Like,
right on.
Super rad.
Cool.
Donny, go pick up the book, Wild Wisdom. Follow Donny on Instagram. It's at Donny Dust. Look for the blue check mark because there's some fakes out there.
There's so many, man.
Isn't that crazy? People just rip off your content and make something else out of it.
I had to delete the Facebook, which I was fine doing because someone's like, why do you keep sending me like sign up for this? I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So apparently it got hacked. It's fine. Really? It's going to be gone. I don't really care though.
Yeah. And it's Donny Dust Paleo Tracks on YouTube. Amazing follow. I think you got a TikTok somewhere out there. Yeah. I'm not on that platform very often.
Yeah, not much.
But more importantly, go get this book, man. This is so cool. It's a great read. Give it to your kids. Get them off Halo.
Yeah.
Get them off YouTube. And let them get outside and go do some stuff, man.
Awesome.
Super rad. Donny, you're welcome in here anytime. Safe travels.
We'll do. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Go watch On the Mountainside.
Yes.
Us making this stone knife. We got to do more.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many ideas.
I need you to show me all your locations where you get stone. Yeah.
I only have a few, but I know where Obsidian's at and I know where some of this is at.
Perfect.
So let's go. All right.
Right on.
Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. If you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com.